You ever wondered why the narcissist doesn't rage when you leave but spirals when you start waking up? It's not the loss of you that drives them mad. It's the loss of control. In their distorted reality, a victim who starts thinking clearly, standing tall, and looking at them with cold, untrusting eyes, that's the real nightmare. In today's video, we're not just talking about pain. We're talking about strategy, healing, and how you reclaim every ounce of your power. Step by step, breath by breath, through intentional silence. This is no longer about emotion. This is psychological survival. If you've ever been manipulated, ever had to scream just to be heard, or lost yourself trying to love someone who always wore a mask, this video is for you. Hit that subscribe button now and stay until the very end, because sometimes one well-timed truth can save an entire life. And I'm not here to retell an old story. I'm here to help you rewrite a new chapter, starting with these 2 words. I'm enough. Part 1. Awakening is what terrifies them the most. Have you ever wondered what truly terrifies a narcissist? It's not your departure. It's not your accusations, your tears, or the rage you once showed. It's that moment when you finally wake up, when you silently realize you've been living inside a carefully crafted play of manipulation, and then you walk away without saying a single word. That is the moment they lose control. And in their world, losing control means losing themselves. A narcissist doesn't love you in the way you understand love. In their eyes, you are not a person with feelings, values, or dreams. You are a supply, a mirror reflecting the power they imagine they possess, a stage upon which they bask in admiration, praise, and your emotional reactions. And when you stop reacting, when you no longer need them, when your gaze is no longer filled with awe, they see it as betrayal. They are not angry because you left. They're angry because you saw the truth. They're afraid because you are no longer enchanted by the beautiful, hollow mask they wear. They're enraged, not because you let go, but because you stopped believing. The greatest loss for a narcissist is not love, it is the power over your perception. And then, when you stop, when you say nothing, argue no more, and feel no need to explain, when you simply look at them with a calm, quiet emptiness, without expectation, that is when they realize they no longer own you. They can no longer pull the strings of your emotions like they used to. And that, for them, is nothing short of a psychological revolution. Why is silence so powerful? Because silence is not avoidance. Silence is the voice of deep awareness. It is the unspoken declaration, I am no longer your puppet. I no longer play by the rules you created. In that silence, you refuse to participate in their cycle of manipulation. You withdraw the supply they crave like oxygen. And in doing so, you force them to face themselves, the one thing they have always run from. A narcissist will never accept this reality peacefully. They will fight back. They'll replay their old roles, begging, raging, playing the victim. They'll send messages, make calls, express regret. But don't confuse regret with a loss of control. They're not sorry they hurt you. They're distressed because they can no longer control you. Here's what you must remember. Reaction is instinct. Response is power. Every time you let emotion take the lead, you hand the power back to them. They'll corner you, use silence to manipulate, evoke beautiful memories, to distort your clarity. But if you stay grounded, if you respond with clarity instead of impulsive emotion, you regain the upper hand. They might unleash a parade of tactics, blame shifting, distraction, nostalgia, even bringing others into the game to pressure you. But you don't need to fight by screaming or exposing them. You simply need to stop playing. Don't explain. Don't defend. Don't raise your voice to prove your truth, because in this power struggle, your quiet withdrawal is the sharpest weapon. They can summon a storm, but if you don't open the door, the storm cannot destroy your home. You've suffered, been manipulated, doubted yourself, but now your eyes are open, and the light of truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs to exist. Your silence is the final line in the script they wrote. It says, I'm no longer living in your story. I'm writing my own. And in a narcissist world, that is the ultimate rejection. You don't need revenge. You don't need to expose them. You don't need someone else to validate the truth you've lived. Because the greatest victory doesn't come from making them hurt as you once did. It comes from no longer hurting because of them. Let them remain in the emptiness they created. As for you, walk away. Without looking back, with a healing heart, a clear mind, and a spirit no longer afraid. And if there are moments when you feel lonely, remember this: loneliness in truth is stronger than being surrounded by lies. Part 2. When you stop playing the role they wrote for you. When you stop playing the role in the script they've written, you're not just taking away their lead character, you're collapsing the entire stage. A narcissist lives in a world they've scripted themselves. Every character is handpicked, every line is tightly controlled, and you, the one who once loved them with everything, have unknowingly been cast as a supporting role in your own story. But then one day, you wake up. You realize you no longer want to perform. You no longer want to be controlled, manipulated, or defined by someone who doesn't truly love you, but only loves the feeling of controlling you. And from the moment you stop reacting, stop engaging, you cease to be their supply, you become something they never anticipated. A free person. To a narcissist, your reactions are fuel. They don't need your love. They need your emotional response, your anger, your tears, your pain. All of it proves they still control your mind. Every time you get angry, argue, or explain, you're continuing the script they offered. You believe you're standing up for yourself, seeking justice, reclaiming your truth. But in their eyes, you're still on stage and they're still the director. Well, what happens when you stop? When you no longer argue, no longer cry, no longer explain? When you sit down, take a deep breath, and go quiet. They lose direction, they panic. Because a narcissist cannot survive in a space where they can't manipulate emotions. Your calmness, your strategic silence doesn't just confuse them, it threatens the entire illusion they've built. Here's the truth. You don't need to fight. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to draw your sword. You simply need to stop participating. Imagine a chess game. They might be a master, calculating every move, but if you're no longer at the table, all their strategies become meaningless. And that is what they cannot stand. Narcissists don't fear strong opponents. They fear the ones who stop playing altogether. You don't need to scream that you've seen through their mask. You just need to withdraw calmly, with dignity, and without a word. No reaction, no blame, no defense. And that nothingness is what strips them of control, because you've taken away the only tool they had to manipulate you, your emotions. They'll try everything to pull you back. A text disguised as concern, a teary apology, a sudden reminder of sweet memories, even a cold, cutting threat. But you must understand, none of it comes from love. It comes from fear. Fear of being left behind, with no one left to react. They don't seek forgiveness. They want you to feel guilty. They don't want connection. They want you confused. Because when you're emotionally unsettled, you're easier to control. And if you re-enter their emotional theater, they get to reclaim the spotlight. They get to define what's right and wrong again. But you are no longer the person you used to be. Now you know that walking away isn't weakness. It is an act of profound inner strength. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain. The more you explain, the more they twist your words. The more you react, the more they weaponize that reaction to reinforce their narrative. And the audience, if unaware, will get swept into the performance. But it's okay. You don't need anyone to believe you. You just need to believe yourself, that you deserve a life where you don't have to prove your worth every day. When you stop playing, you're not just protecting yourself, you're dismantling the entire manipulative system they built. One more thing, your silence is not emptiness. It is a powerful choice. It's how you say, I will no longer live in a story I didn't get to write. That silence might be misunderstood. It might feel lonely, but it is the only path back to your true self. And remember, a narcissist can pretend to be anyone, can manipulate everyone, but they cannot manipulate a mind that has awakened, a mind no longer governed by emotion, a mind that knows peace doesn't come from winning the argument, but from no longer needing to argue at all. In the end, let them speak, let them perform, let them rewrite the story however they want. But you walk away quietly, but with fierce strength, because your withdrawal is not a sign of surrender. It is the ultimate act of someone who finally knows their worth. Part 3, the truth doesn't need to be shouted. You'll want to speak. You'll want to defend yourself. You'll feel the urge to be heard. That's natural after leaving a manipulative relationship with a narcissist. When you walk away in silence, they won't accept it quietly. They won't let go gracefully. Instead, they'll ignite a war you never asked for. a war over reputation, perception, and truth. We call it the smear campaign, a well-worn weapon in the narcissist's arsenal. But what makes it so toxic isn't just the lies they spread, it's the way they twist your silence and your pain into evidence against you. They don't need to shout. A well-timed sigh, a carefully distorted detail, a masterfully performed victim act, and suddenly they've rewritten the entire narrative to an audience that doesn't know the truth. You once believed that truth would protect itself, that if you lived with integrity, people would see it, but then you face a painful realization: truth doesn't always win in a world where emotions are manipulated and stories are spun, and so you feel the pull to speak up, to tell your side, to prove you're not who they say you are. But that's the trap, a trap disguised as justice, crafted with cunning precision. Narcissists understand the heart of their victims. They know you're kind. They know being misunderstood wounds you. They know you'll want to respond when falsely accused. And they use that very empathy to drag you back into their game, a game you can never win, because they don't play by the rules of truth. They play by the rules of psychological manipulation. When you tell one truth, they tell three half-truths. When you explain, they'll slice your words and reassemble them into another lie. When you cry, they'll turn to others and whisper, "See? They're unstable, overly emotional." Every word you say, no matter how honest or logical, becomes twisted into evidence of the instability they're eager to assign you. And then you find yourself stuck in a loop, get distorted again, get twisted again. That's not communication. That's psychological warfare. They'll say, "I tried, I enjoyed, but they just changed too much." They'll murmur, "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I think you should know," just so you understand. They won't plant seeds of truth. They'll plant seeds of doubt, carefully selected, emotionally charged, just enough to make others question you and side with them. The most dangerous part, and it won't come from hatred. It'll come wrapped in false pity. They won't attack directly. They'll manipulate with soft tones, sad eyes, and the absence of direct accusations. They don't need to make you look bad. They just need to make you look untrustworthy. And you, the one who lived it, loved, genuinely, endured quietly, are left standing among the shattered pieces of your truth. You want to speak, you want to restore your dignity, but pause, breathe, and remember, every reaction you give helps them complete their performance. What they fear most isn't your rebuttal, it's your silence. Not the silence of surrender, but the silence of intention. A silence that speaks, "I will not perform in your drama anymore." In a show directed by a narcissist, your quiet exit is the final collapse of their stage. The truth doesn't need to scream. It needs time. It needs patience. It needs a steady heart that knows honor isn't preserved through debate, but through the life you choose to live every single day. The people who truly believe in you, they don't need explanations. They'll see it in your calm eyes, feel it in the peaceful way you walk forward. And those who don't believe you, they never will, no matter how much you say. So don't waste your energy on people who choose a comfortable lie over an uncomfortable truth. Live, heal, let time and your consistency do what no defense ever could. Because in the end, your silence is the most powerful response to all the noise they create. And if you ever ate from being misunderstood, remember this: you don't need to be understood by everyone. You only need to be understood by yourself. That is power, that is freedom, that is the ending they can't control, and only you get to write. Part 4, when they manipulate the public, don't manipulate yourself. If you leave the door even slightly ajar, the narcissist will come crashing through it with a sledgehammer. They don't need an invitation. They only need a sign that your heart is still soft. One reply to a message, one answered call, one unconscious reaction. That's all it takes for them to know they still have a chance. And for them, if there's a chance, there's still control. You think you're being kind, that maintaining peace is a sign of maturity, that a short reply won't hurt, that maybe, just maybe, you can still be friends. But a narcissist doesn't see it the way you do in their distorted world. Kindness is weakness, empathy is an invitation, and any crack in your boundary is a doorway back to their throne of control. You're not walking away from a person, you're walking away from a system of manipulation. An invisible prison built from sweet words, nostalgic memories, and subtle attacks on your self-worth. And if you let them in, Even with something as seemingly harmless as, I just want to make sure you're okay, you're handing them the same old key you fought so hard to take back. The narcissist doesn't return because they miss you. They return because they miss the power they once held over you. They don't come back to love you. They come back to test whether you're still as easy to manipulate as before. Every 3 a.m. message, every I miss our daughter, or you were the only one who ever understood me. It's not regret, it's bait. It's the hook they throw to see if you'll still bite. And if you're polite, even with a single word, they know you're not truly free. The game can begin again. Here's the problem. You're healing, but healing cannot happen when the old poison still has access to your emotional nervous system. You cannot truly recover if the very toxin that broke you still has the key to come back in. You may think you can handle it, that you're strong enough to just say a few words and move on. But the truth is you're underestimating the narcissist's skill. They don't need your rage to return. They need your uncertainty. They need you confused, second-guessing your decision. And what they're best at is making you doubt your own intuition. You are strong enough to leave. Don't be soft enough to reopen the door. Don't let a sweet phrase awaken the parts of you they once lulled to sleep with the illusion of love. They won't stop at one message. They'll reach out to your loved ones. They'll coincidentally show up at places you frequent. They'll paint a story that it was all just a misunderstanding, that they've changed, but they haven't changed. They've changed tactics. You might feel guilty. You might miss the good memories. You might feel bad about blocking them, deleting messages, cutting ties. But that isn't cruelty, that's survival. Because the one who once broke you cannot be the one who heals you. The one who once controlled you cannot be the one who leads you to freedom. Stop romanticizing kindness. In this war, misplaced kindness is the blade turned against you. You don't owe kindness to someone who treated your emotions like a game. You don't owe them a message. You don't owe them a call. You don't owe them one more chance. They'll say you're cold. They'll call you heartless. They'll use your children, your family, your memories to make you feel like you are the problem. But it's the same playbook, just with the new cover. And if you return out of guilt, you don't just lose your freedom, you lose trust in yourself. The truth is, freedom must be protected, not with violence, but with boundaries. Clear, firm, non-negotiable boundaries. If you need to change a number, do it. If you need to block every social media account, do it. If you need to move, do it. That's not extreme. That's self-care. And when you do, you're saying to yourself, I deserve peace. You're saying to the world, I'm no longer someone who can be controlled. And you're saying to the narcissist, this game is over forever. You don't need to convince them to stop. You just need to make sure there's no way back. And that doesn't come from words. It comes from unshakable action. You've survived. Now it's time to live free. Part 5. Not responding is an act of survival. Leaving a narcissist is not like ending a normal relationship. It's not a mature conversation over coffee, nor a tearful but mutual goodbye. There is no such thing as a peaceful breakup with someone who saw you as a tool to maintain their power. When you walk away, they don't just lose a lover, they lose their supply, the fuel that kept their false ego alive. And to them, that's not a breakup. It's a rebellion. Leaving a narcissist is an escape, not a separation. You don't just walk out the door on a whim. You don't pack your bags like you're casually choosing a new path. Because if you leave unprepared, they will find a way to pull you back in. Not out of love, but because you still have vulnerabilities, financial dependence, lack of safety, housing instability, or emotional loneliness. You need to understand this clearly. Freedom isn't just a decision. It's a carefully calculated plan. It doesn't come from emotion, it comes from strategy. And that plan must begin long before you ever say the words, I'm leaving. Start with the basics. Money. You can't walk away without financial independence. Narcissists know this. They often use money like an invisible collar. They may act generous, saying things like, don't worry about anything, I've got you. But beneath those words is a silent message, you won't survive without me. So open your own account. You don't need thousands right away. Just start. Save what you can. $20, 0 cents a week, $50, 0 cents if possible. Every dollar isn't just cash, it's a declaration of your freedom. Then secure your documents, your passport, ID, your children's birth certificates, medical records, driver's license, lease, legal documents. All must be scanned, backed up, and stored in a safe place they can't access. Send copies to a trusted friend. Keep them where only you have control. Next, build your support system. You don't need an army. You just need one person who sees the truth. Someone immune to the narcissist's teary eyes and sweet words. Someone you could call at midnight. Someone who could offer you a safe place for one night if needed. And if you don't have that person, reach out to a domestic abuse hotline, a shelter, or a support center for psychological abuse victims. Do not do this alone. Most importantly, don't let them know you're planning. Narcissists don't let go of supply easily. If they sense you're preparing to escape their grip, they'll shift into sabotage mode. They'll try to fall in love with you again. They'll cry, they'll beg, they'll lure you back with memories of better days. But don't be fooled. Suddenly kind again? That's not affection. That's strategy. Suddenly changed? That's not growth. That's performance. Threatening harm if you leave is not pain. That's control. Don't let your compassion cloud your logic. Play your part. Smile. Speak kindly. Even show affection if you must. But inside you're planning. You're counting down. You're gathering every piece of strength they once stole. And on the day it's all ready, your money, documents, housing, and support, you leave. No noise, no explanations, no goodbye monologues, because with someone who manipulates through words, a goodbye is just another opening for a new manipulation cycle. They'll text, they'll call, they'll create drama with others. They'll spin the story to paint you as the cruel one, the heartless one, the deserter. Don't respond. Not because you're afraid, but because you finally stopped playing. And that is the most powerful decision you'll ever make. You don't owe anyone an explanation for saving yourself. You don't need to justify choosing survival over an illusion of love. You don't need permission to say enough. This is not a tragic ending. It's the first chapter of rebirth. And if you feel fear, that's normal. But remember this, to walk away while afraid is the truest form of courage. Part 6, don't underestimate the ones in the middle. After you leave, not all dangers are behind you. One of the most subtle and dangerous traps often lies within your very own social circle, among people you thought were friends. The ones you once had dinner with, shared phone calls with, exchanged innocent stories with. People who remain in contact with both you and the narcissist. They're not enemies, but they're no longer a safe space either. You might think, I've known them forever. They understand me. You might believe they won't take sides. You might hope they'll keep my confidence. But the truth is, very few people can stand in the middle of truth and manipulation without eventually leaning. Because a narcissist, charming on the outside, soft-spoken, teary-eyed, doesn't need bold lies to sway people to their side. All they need is to plant a little doubt, a little self-victimization, a few whispered words soaked in pain, and that's enough to fracture the image you work so hard to preserve. They may not betray you intentionally, but they will accidentally forward a message, accidentally repeat a conversation, accidentally reveal your location, accidentally ask the narcissist questions about things you confided in them, not out of malice, but out of ignorance, out of a failure to understand psychological abuse. They don't realize that staying in touch with both sides isn't neutrality. It's an open door for manipulation to continue. They don't see that while you're trying to rebuild yourself piece by piece, they might be unconsciously pulling you back toward the very pain you escaped from. And that's why temporarily cutting ties with mutual acquaintances isn't extreme, it's necessary. It doesn't come from hatred, it comes from self-protection. It doesn't mean you despise them. It means you love yourself enough to prioritize your healing. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It means you know that during recovery, you don't have the capacity to untangle even more webs that might pull you back into old wounds. You can't control what they've heard. You can't clear up every rumor or distortion. And that might make you feel a strong urge to explain, to defend your name, to keep your friendships, to avoid being painted as the problem. But remember this, trying to explain when you are still fragile is placing yourself back into a chess match you cannot win. Because every word you speak, every message you send, whether accidentally or deliberately, can become a puzzle piece the narcissist uses to reconstruct their version of the story. You say, I'm just hurting. They report, she's not doing well. I'm worried about her. You message, I just need time to understand myself. They whisper, he's panicking. He's emotionally unstable. You remain silent. They say, see, the silence proves guilt. In the hands of a narcissist, even your silence becomes a confession. So don't engage, don't explain, don't clarify, just step away. Firmly, let them talk. Let those who aren't ready to see the truth stay lost in the fog. You don't need to recruit people to your side, because truth doesn't need to be sold through explanations. Truth simply needs to be lived in silence, in consistency, in freedom. And believe this, the people who are truly your friends, they will return when the dust settles. To recognize who was acting and who was simply trying to survive, they'll see that you need to fight with words, only to walk with unwavering peace. And those who never believed you, they never really saw you. They lack the courage to stand with truth. And you don't need them, not now, as you rebuild your life. Remember, you are reconstructing a life. You can't do that amid whispers. You need stillness, you need distance, you need open space to heal. And sometimes that means saying goodbye not to enemies, but to those who aren't yet aware enough not to be used. Don't fear being alone. Fear the relationships that make you question your own worth. You don't have to cut them off forever. You just need to protect yourself until you're strong enough to return, not as a wounded soul, but as a healed one. When that day comes, you won't need anyone to validate your journey. You won't need anyone to affirm what you've overcome. You walk forward with steady posture, a peaceful heart, and eyes that no longer seek approval, only truth. Up 7, loneliness is not a reason to love the wrong person again. After escaping a relationship with the narcissist, a vast emptiness opens up inside you. It's not just the absence of a person, it's the collapse of an illusion. A world you once believed was real, a love you thought would last forever, a person into whom you poured your whole heart. And then suddenly, it all crumbles. Like a sandcastle washed away by the first wave of truth. You will feel lonely, deeply, coldly, sometimes even more frighteningly than when you were still with them. No one ever told you that the initial taste of freedom might feel more hollow than liberating. No one ever taught you that when you walk away from a manipulator, you're not just leaving them. You're forced to face your own shadow, the self-doubt, the shame, the feeling of not being enough, and a vague fear that perhaps you may never be truly loved. And in that moment, you will want to fill the void with someone new, with a presence, with a sweet message, with a stranger's hand that knows how to listen. No one blames you for that desire. We're human, we long for connection. But I beg you, don't jump into a new relationship just to escape the old loneliness. Because the loneliness that follows leaving a narcissist is unlike any other emptiness. It's the stillness after a storm, the echo of lies once whispered to you every night, the abandoned battlefield of a war you barely survived. And if you try to fill that space with someone else, before you understand why you once accepted less than what you deserved, you are not healing, you are repeating. You once loved someone who made you prove your worth every day. Someone who made you feel that if you weren't good enough, you'd be abandoned. Someone who convinced you that love must be fought for, endured, compromised, and suffered. So now ask yourself, has your heart truly learned how to love in freedom? If you still believe that love means pleasing someone, holding on at all costs, reshaping yourself to be loved, then you are at risk of falling into the same trap, just with a different mask. Stop. Turn inward. Ask yourself the questions you've been avoiding. Why did I stay so long in a relationship that hurt me? Why did I believe that loving someone meant forgetting myself? Why am I so afraid of being alone that I chose pain just to avoid it? The answers won't come right away, but in facing them, you're doing something a narcissist never does. You're growing. You don't need a new love. You need to relearn how to love yourself. Not through hollow affirmations, not through spa days, travel, or fake happy photos, but by sitting with your loneliness without trying to escape it, by holding your heart when it aches and saying, I'm here, I won't abandon myself again. Because if you can sit with yourself on your darkest nights, you will always need someone else to fill the silence. And that craving for someone to fill you is exactly what emotional manipulators sense first. You need to become the friend you once begged others to be, the one who holds you when you tremble, the one who tells you the truth when you lie to yourself, the one strong enough to protect you from sweet words that lead to destruction. And when you can do that, something miraculous happens. The loneliness no longer frightens you. It becomes the space where you grow. You no longer seek someone to rescue you. You don't chase love from a place of lack. You choose a partner not to complete you, but to walk beside you on a path you've already learned to stand strong on. A real relationship won't arrive to fill the void. It will arrive when your heart knows how to live on its own and simply wants to share that life with someone equally whole. Give yourself time and let yourself fall. Let the wounds speak the pain you've never named. Let the tears wash away old memories. And let the silence be where you find yourself again. Because true love only comes when you stop searching for someone to make you feel enough and start believing that you already are. Part 8, the ending will never come from them. It was waited for far too long. A real apology, a moment of sincerity when they look you in the eye and say, I'm sorry for everything. But that moment never comes. And the painful truth is, it never will. That's one of the harshest awakenings when you've loved a narcissist. They will never give you the closure you deserve. They won't apologize. They won't write a kind farewell. They won't explain the damage they caused. Not because they forgot, not because they don't see it, but because in their distorted reality, they were never wrong. Believe like they were never there. Or worse, to leave the door slightly open. Just enough for you to keep hoping. A vague, I still think about you. A lingering look of regret. A suggestion that things could have been different if. What they leave behind is not closure. It's a psychological trap designed to keep you stuck in an unwritten chapter. You want an ending, a clear conclusion, one final conversation. You want to understand why they hurt you, why they changed, why love became a battle you fought alone. But they'll never give you that. They never do. Narcissists don't close chapters. They leave them unfinished. Not because they forgot to write the ending, but because they want the option to return whenever they choose. An unanswered question, an unclear conclusion, a door left unlocked. That's how they keep you in limbo. Not quite a lover, not quite a stranger. A place with no way out. And the more you wait for answers, the tighter you're bound to their game. You think that if they would just explain, if you could just understand, if they'd apologize once, you could finally let go. But what you don't realize is this. It's the waiting itself that's keeping you from healing. Because closure doesn't come from the one who wounded you. Closure is your own internal decision. It's the moment you say, I won't wait for another word to allow myself to move on. They won't apologize because they don't believe they did anything wrong. They won't explain because they don't think you're worthy of an explanation. They won't give you a clean ending because they need you confused so they can return at any time. And while you're looking for closure through their silence, they're using that very silence to manipulate you. Every day you ask why is another day trapped in their cycle. You don't need an apology to let go. You don't need a poetic ending to continue living. You don't need anyone else to close your chapter. You hold the pen. Closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from the moment you look in the mirror and say, I no longer need anything from them to know my worth. You create your ending when you stop searching for reasons from someone who can't live in truth. You create your ending when you accept that they never loved you the way you loved them. You create your ending when you admit they didn't love you. They love being loved by you. They don't miss you. They miss the control. They miss the admiration. They miss the way your eyes once sparkled with devotion. They miss the days when you tried everything to please them. And now that you no longer love them, they don't know what to do with themselves because in their story, you were the supporting character. They're to prop up their spotlight. Now that you've stepped out of that script, they've lost both their audience and the false self they fed on. Don't wait for them to draw the curtain. Don't wait for them to step onto the stage and bow with remorse. They never perform the ending. They only vanish once they've secured a new audience. And you're no longer the audience, you've awakened. True closure is not a final conversation. It is your final silence. It is when you choose not to respond, not to wait, not to search. It is when you finally choose yourself. Let them live in the story they continue to write and perform. Let them find a new character to replace you, but you write a new chapter where you are the main character, not to get revenge, not to prove anything, but simply to live in the truth. You paid a heavy price to finally see. They'll say you're cold. They'll say you're heartless. But no one has the right to judge how you protect a wound that hasn't fully healed. Closure is not something they will ever give you. Closure is something you give to yourself. And when you do, you don't just escape a relationship. You escape an entire cycle that has gone on far too long. You don't need closure from them because the truth is already written in your experience. You are enough. You have always been enough. Now's the time to live like you finally believe. Part 9. Your silence is their greatest fear. You once believed that to make a narcissist afraid, you had to scream. You had to fight back, expose them, corner them until they were forced to admit their wrongs. But no, the truth is, they are not afraid of your anger. They're used to it. In fact, they expect it. It's part of their game. Provoke, manipulate and trap you in emotional chaos. What truly terrifies a narcissist is not your shouting, it's your silence. Not the silence of despair, but the silence illuminated by awareness. It's the kind of silence that no longer needs answers, no longer seeks responses, no longer plays the role of the forgiver, the understanding one, or the bigger person. It's a silence born of strength, a silence born of a soul that has reclaimed itself from ruin. And that stillness is something they cannot manipulate. Narcissists live off your reactions. They consume your emotions like fuel to sustain their distorted existence. Every time you argue, cry, defend, or justify, you feed them. To them, you're not a person, you're supply, a source of energy where they draw their sense of power, their confirmation that they still matter. And when you stop reacting, the entire system collapses. There's nothing left for them to control, no words to twist, no emotions to toy with, no audience for their tearful performance. Silence is the ultimate. Rejection, the irreversible departure. You don't need to play the gracious one. You don't need to reply to "I miss you." You don't need to maintain the image of maturity, because silence is not immaturity. It's the highest form of maturity when faced with someone who cannot respect your boundaries. Let them talk. Let them create their story. Let them convince the world you're the cold one, the heartless one, the one who stopped loving. You don't have to correct it, because your quiet, steady presence will speak louder than any explanation ever could. You no longer need to prove anything. You once chased the truth, try to explain, justify things that didn't need justifying, but now you know the truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be lived. They might gather a crowd to believe them. Well, the crowd is not the truth. They might find someone new to replace you, but replacement is not healing. They might return to the spotlight, but they will always carry the emptiness inside, the one you once tried to fill, but never could. And now, as you remain silent, not out of fear, but because you no longer want to play, they begin to panic for real. They'll try to reactivate you. They'll text, call, appear unexpectedly, pretend to need help. They'll say things that hit the most beautiful memories you had with them, not because they miss you, but because they missed the feeling of controlling your mind. But you are no longer the same. You see the manipulation. You hear the pretty words without falling under their spell. You understand there's no reason to open the door you sealed with blood, tears, and every ounce of courage you had. Silence is the mark of a soul that chose healing over revenge. Again, you don't need to win. You don't need them to see their mistakes. You don't need their acknowledgement. You only need peace, the one thing they could never give you. And now, by choosing silence, you are not punishing them. You are protecting yourself. That silence is the wall between you and the chaos, the space for you to breathe, having the room you need to heal, the whisper of freedom. If anyone asks you, why don't you say anything? You should smile, because those who understand don't need answers. And those who don't won't understand, no matter how much you say. Silence is not the end. Silence is the beginning of a life no longer ruled by manipulation, the beginning of true healing, the place where you rewrite your story without villains, without fake roles, just you, honest, free, and whole. They can't write the script anymore because you've left the stage. And out there, that's real life. That's the real you. That's the light they can't bear to face. In the end, what truly sets you free isn't the narcissist admitting fault. It isn't an apology. It isn't justice coming from the outside. It's the moment you no longer need anything from them to live a whole beautiful life. You've walked through fire. You've lived in the shadows of a relationship where love was conditional, where you had to shrink yourself to be seen, to break yourself into pieces just to hold on to something you thought was love. But now you stand in the light of awareness, of courage, of a truth no one can take from you. You have come home to yourself. They may never apologize. They may continue playing the victim, spinning lies, manipulating those around you, but none of that matters anymore, because victory isn't about watching them fall. Victory is you rising, not with bitterness, not with blame, not with a thirst for revenge, but rising in the quiet strength of someone who has realized peace doesn't come from the outside. Peace comes from no longer being controlled on the inside. They once believed they were the ones who broke you, but in reality, they were the ones who led you to the doorway of awakening. And now you're rewriting your story, not as a side character in someone else's script, but as the protagonist of your own authentic journey. If you're still here reading these final words, then I know one thing. You are strong, stronger than you've ever realized. And the most beautiful part is, you're not alone. There are thousands of others stepping out of the shadows just like you, and we're walking this path together.